So alright guys, so since we are into functions, so let's quickly look at the functions that are available for some of our data types. For example, the string data type, the integer data type, the double data type, what are the functions that are available? What are the input of operation that we can magically use on these data type values that will give us what we want? For example, let's say you have this string of name, name, and maybe it's just in, you can say John, and maybe you want to make all of this in caps. Maybe you want the value to be in John, in all in caps. So for example, let me just log this out. So let me just say name, this I'm expecting all of the value in as John, just like I gave it. So if I launch this, so you can see it is telling me John. So what if I want all of this in caps, or I want all of this in small letter? So so am I supposed to write a function to do all of this for me? No, there are some inbuilt functions that are meant to get all of these values. For example, I can even get the length, how long the value is, and so on. So there are some things called string functions, right? So what are these string functions? So let's quickly go to our browser, then we make our research on the available string functions on MQL4, right? So we can say string functions on MQL4. MQL4. Sorry about this. So on MQL4, right? And these are the options doc.mql4, right? So now, basically, these functions which are listed, you do not need to memorize them. All you need to do is know that they are available and know the action that they can help you with, right? So for example, you can use this string add to add one string to the end of another string, then you have this string buffer length, whatever. So you can just know the availability of this function. So as I was trying to say, you can see this string to upper, which can transform all the value that you specify, not symbol. I think there's a mistake with this documentation. So all these value that you specify, it will make it in caps, in capital letter, right? So let me right click to open to get the details of what this function is doing and what it returns, how I should use it. So now function usually have two things. So they are always doing one thing, and at the same time they might be returning something. For example, look at this. It is telling me that it is going to be returning a bool. That is what this particular line is telling me, that it is going to return a boolean. That is, it's going to return if this is successful, if it is able to perform the operation that I want, which is converting from whatever caps I'm giving it to capital letter. So it's telling me that this function, when I call this function, it is going to tell me true or false, but anything that I pass down into it will be converted to capital letter, then will be reassigned to the variable, right? So this is what I mean. For example, if I say string to upper, then I specify the variable, right? So it is going to return a boolean, right, which is a true or false. Maybe is the conversion to uppercase successful, yes or no, or it's going to do that, but at the same time it is going to convert my variable to uppercase and reassign the uppercase form to this variable. So that is what it's going to do. So now, if after adding this line, what do you expect? I expect all of this in capital letter, right? So let me just save and I'll compile. So let me launch this. You can see now it is in caps. So now, what if maybe I'm not aware of, and maybe I've forgotten what this is, maybe I've forgotten what this is doing. Then I decide to go this route. Maybe we have this. So now let's assume I'm trying to return this. Of course, it will be returning true or false. Maybe it is that means it's telling me that the conversion of this particular variable, the content in this particular variable to uppercase was successful or not. That is what it will be returning. So when you're using a function, you should understand what the function is doing and what the function is returning, so that you will know how to work around it, right? So now this is meant to return whether this is successful when it is trying to convert this variable all in capital letter. So let me try to save and compile. Then we go for it. You can see it will be returning true or false, meaning I was able to convert this particular variable all in caps. Now, this is not the proper way, like I said, and that is because let's assume I did not read I do not know how to properly use this. I don't understand what it is returning and what it is doing. So now, but this has already given me hints, just that maybe I was typing too fast and I did not see it or something. This is telling me that it will help me to convert whatever string variable that I had to this, and it is going to return if it is successful or not. Then it is going to assign the uppercase form back to this variable. So it is telling me that I'm going to convert all of this back to, and so that is what it is doing, right? So that is that for uppercase. So we are not limited to this. We can also have lowercase. So we can say lowercase. And of course, this is also going to, if you notice when I try to add more parameters, of course, it doesn't take more than one parameters, but just to give me, I just want to pop up these two tips. So this is also telling me that it is going to return true or false. Maybe it is successful when converting the string to lowercase, all in lowercase, Then if I try to print this, allowed this name, it is going to get me the John in all in lowercase, right? So you see now it is giving me all in lowercase. So that is that. So in general, you should get familiar with this string because we'll be using some of these functions later in the lectures. So get familiar with them, know what they return just by maybe clicking on them. For example, this is going to return the length of the string, So in this case, when we are using something like this, we let's say we want to get the length of this. So you can say string length, then we have to specify the string variable, right? Now, what is it returning? So it is going to return the length, right? So if we still want to print the name, we are still going to be getting this. So what we should be doing is that we print this directly. So is that we print this directly, or we assign another variable to say length, that says length, but in form of an integer, since this particular function is returning a length or an integer, so that is why I'm saying int, right? So now I can now print the length. You can see when I try to print the length, oops, this is not depending on length, so there should be G. So now if I save and compile, what do you think the length is? The length is 4. So I will double click. You can see the length is 4. So, and if I specify something else, maybe let me specify this. So what do you think the length is? The length is 7, right? So let's see. I'll save and compile, and it's going to get me 7, right? So that is that. So try to get familiar with these functions. Just know what they are doing so that you won't have to recreate them when you need them. For example, you can get the subscreen, you can get, you can do a lot using these functions available for you. All you need to do is know how they work, know how to implement them, right? So we are not just limited to string functions. We also have math functions. So you can simply come back here to say math functions, right? So okay, you can see this is it, but not exactly this. Okay, let me just go for this. Then under this, we will be able to get the actual function, the actual page. Okay, this is it. So these are the math functions. These are the functions that I can possibly use for numerical values in MQL4, right? So you can say I can get the absolute value, which is the positive value of a particular number. So even if it is positive, it's going to return positive. If it is negative, it is going to return positive, So that is what absolute is. Get me the positive value of that. So you can see I can get the arc cosine. Maybe you are doing a huge mathematical operation. So you can see the cosine form, arc cosine. So, okay, you know what? Let's quickly get maybe the maximum. You can see this is the maximum between two values, So this maximum value, you can see, let's try to check what it do. So it is, if you call this maximum math maximum, it's going to take in two variables, so which is the first one and the second one. Then it is going to compare them, which one is higher. Then whatever value is higher, it is going to return that particular value. So you can see that this is returning a value. So if you have to come back here, so let's say alert. Okay, you know what? Let me not get you confused. I'll say highest, So let me say what is the math maximum between this number and this number. So what do you think is the highest? So of course the highest will be the this guy, which is 89. So I'll just save and I'll compile. So I'll launch. You can see it is giving me 89, right? So that is because it is highest. So I'm not just limited to specify something in something in an integer form. It can be in form of a double. It can be maybe this particular price and maybe this particular price. So what do you think is the maximum? Of course, this is the maximum. So let's save and compile so that we can see. So I will launch and you can see this is the value that it is giving me. So now that is that. Also, we have max minimum, if you can guess, right? So what is the, okay, I think we can change this to lowest or lower. So I'll just save this and I'll compile. Then we can launch again. You can see this is the lower point, this is lower than the other one. So that is that. We are not just limited to this. So just try as much as possible to get familiar with all these functions. So you do not need to go through all of this. It is only when you are interested, or maybe when you need it, then you should try to go back to this documentation. So note this page, or you just search through your favorite searching. For example, you will notice the way I search for string function in MQL4, and you'll be able to get results that will drive you to this page, which is this documentation for MQL4. So you can see we have other options, like the math modulus, just like I promised you. So let's say you want to get okay, let me say remainder. So let me say remainder. So what I will be doing is, let me say math modulus. So that means get me the remainder when you divide these two numbers, which is, let's say 9 divided by 2. You can see I do not need to say divided by 2. All I need to do is I need to admit that I'm calling a function, but the function will take care of the division part, So I'll just say comma 2, right? So that means the function, which is this math modulus, math mode, is taking in two parameters, which is the value 1 and value 2. So please divide this value 1 by this value 2 and get me the remainder. So that is what I mean. So now it's going to tell me that, okay, what do you think it's going to tell me? It's going to tell me 1, right? So let me save and I'll compile, right? So I'll go back and I'll launch. You can see it is telling me that when you divide 9 by 2, the remainder will be 1, right? So now let's go back and say maybe 8 divided by 2. What do you think will be the remainder? So generally, this modulus will give us the remainder after a division, right? So let me save and compile. It doesn't even care about the result. It just give me the remainder. So now it's going to tell me 0, right? So you can see it's becoming interesting, right? So let's say 1 million, whatever divided by 2. Of course, this is an odd number, so it is going to give me 1, right? So when you divide this number by 2, it's going to give me 1. So I'll save and I'll compile, right? So you can see it is telling me 1. So that is that. So we can also get this function, which is to round up a particular value to the nearest integer. Let's quickly look at that. So let's say you have these values. Okay, let me just write it like this. Let me say I have these values called round, and I want to round up this particular number to the nearest integer. Okay, you know what, this is too much. So let's just do this. So I want to round it up to the nearest integer. So let's see the value it's going to give us. So I'll save and I'll compile, right? So, and you can see it is telling me that 823. That is that's the nearest integer to this particular value. So now the question is, how do I know the number of parameters or the parameters that a particular inbuilt function, a particular function is going to take in or is willing to accept? It's as simple as just put a comma inside the brackets. For example, when I was trying to call this, right? So let's assume I can't remember. Maybe I've used it before, but I can't remember if it's willing to accept the parameters or how many parameters it wants. So after typing, I can just say comma, just for me to have this tool tip. So for example, now it's telling me that this math function, this math round is returning a double, but it's only taking this number of parameters, which is 1. And it is taking value. This value should also be in double. So this is the data type of the value that it is expecting. So that means if I want to give it a value of string, maybe John, it is not going to work because the value that this function is expecting should be in double. So let me try to save and compare. You can see I won't be getting what I want. So let me see. Okay, you can see it is telling me 0. That means there is a problem. So to know the number of values or the number of parameters that a function is expecting, all you need to do is write the function, put your brackets. For example, let's write maybe string, let's say we write string length, Now, the moment I say bracket, you can see it is telling me that it's expecting a string value and just 1 parameters is what it's expecting. So the moment I specify the parameter that I want to, that is it wants, that means I'm done. So And in the case of maybe math minimum or math maximum, let's say math maximum, so you can see that it's telling me that it wants two values, two parameters, and the first value should be in double and the second value should be in double, right? Let's say we want to get a value of maybe maybe round. Okay, let's say round, which is a random number. So let's say we want to get random round. As you can see, it is telling me void, meaning you do not need to specify anything. Just close and you'll be good to go. So let's quickly run this. Let's use this. So instead of having this, I'll take this away and let's see. This is going to generate a random number. So if you go and read the documentation for this particular function, it's going to generate a random number each time, and the random number fall between 1 to I think 32,000 and something. So you can see here it will generate a random number between 0 and 32,767. So if I run this, you can see the number is generated. So if I run it again, it will generate a different number, and each time I run it, it will always generate a different number. So without changing anything, you keep generating a number between 0 and 32,776, right? So it is as simple as that. So that's that on string function and math function. So let's quickly end this lecture with the last form of inbuilt function, or not really the last form, but for now we just pause for now, talking about inbuilt function. So there are some inbuilt functions that are also available, right? For example, let's say you want to get the step. Remember the step when I was showing you the specification. Let me remind you of what step is. So if you have to right click on any of these and go for specification, okay, let's go back for step, which is volume step. This, you can see the step for this is 0.01. Also, you can notice what the step is just by right clicking and going for on click. And when you try to move these steps, you can see the step at which you are able to move when you are using this. That is what step is. So how do you programmatically get this? So now there are functions that makes this possible, right? So you know what, let me just say this, and I'll just give it whatever name that I want. For now, I'll just say step. So now how do I get the function? Also, we have some function, like some reserve function in MQL4 that takes in that, depending on the parameters that you pass down, that will help the function to understand what you want to retrieve. For example, I can say I can say market info. Then when I open my bracket, it will tell me that yes, this market info function returns a double. That means that is why I have this data type as double, because I already have the experience that is what I'm expecting. And in the case where you do not have such experience, the moment you realize that, oh, this is returning a double, maybe you already assigned long or int, try to change it back to double, because that is what this function will be returning. So now, if you have to look at this, it is expecting two parameters. One is the symbol of what you want to retrieve. So what symbol do you want to retrieve this market information for? So I can simply say I want to retrieve for my chart symbol, right? Then comma, for what type of market information do I want to retrieve? So you can see that even MQL4 have this enum. So you can see enum underscore market info. So there is a certain number of options that is already reserved in MQL4, right? So especially for this market info function. So now, how do you know? You can easily make your research on what this market info is. You can say market info in MQL4, whatever. Then look at this documentation part. So you can see we have options. So how do you know the options? So under the type, which is this market information type, so you can click on this. Then it will lead us to a page where it will tell us that, okay, these are the things that you can potentially get when you get the market info. So you can get the mode low, the I, the time, the bid, the ask price, the point, and so on. So now, let's say you want to get the step. So automatically, this is what you are interested in. So you can see, like I said, you need to know all of these things. You do not need to memorize them. You just need to know, number one, you need to know how to make research for them, and try not to forget anyone you've used, so that you won't have to always redo your research. So for example, to get the step for a particular symbol, so all you need to do is specify the symbol, then comma, then it is expecting the type of information that you want to retrieve, which we've seen the options that is available, and to close this and put a semicolon. So you can simply print out the step. So let's print out the step here. I'll save and I'll compile. Oops, sorry, this is for lot size. It should be step, sorry. Lot step. Sorry about that. Which is this, right? So I will save and I will compile, So let me launch again. You can see this is the step. So let's see what the step is for this. Good. Same thing. Let's see what the step is for US 30. I think that is one. So you can see one, yes. And that is because when I think we check for step for US 30, okay, you can see the step for US 30 is 1. So these are the things you can retrieve. Also, you can also retrieve things like the ask price. For example, remember that we already have the ask price available for us like this. And for this will return the ask price for the current chart. So let's assume you are on a different chart, but you want the ask price for a particular chart that is not equal to the chart symbol. So let's assume maybe you are on gold and you want the chart, the ask price for USD, Euro USD. So all you can do is you can say mode ask, right? You will notice we have the option here, mode ask, right? So this is going to return the ask price. So I can call this ask price. So I cannot call this ask price simply because it is already taken. So I can simply use the capital letter A, or I can say ask price. I can say ask price so that it will be the same with the taking name, right? So I can just print this out. So even if I am on any pair, whatever, it is going to retrieve the ask price specifically for Euro USD. So now I can save and compile. So if I launch this, you will notice that this is, meanwhile, notice the ask price for this, it is not even related. It is getting me the ask price for Euro USD. Even if I'm on Euro USD, it is still going to get me the ask price for Euro USD. And if I'm on any other pair, it is still going to get me the ask price for, that particular specified symbol that I gave the argument, the function. So even if I'm on USD JPY, it is still getting me Euro USD ask price, So I can also get the bid price, So basically the essence of doing this is just maybe in case where you are dealing with the chart symbol, So and in case where you don't want the chart symbol's ask price, you can specify the whatever symbol, All you need to do is put it in quotes because symbols are usually in quotes, right? So specify it in quotes and whatever symbol that you want. So we are not limited to this, like I said. So you can get the bit price, you can get the digits, You can get the digits for this. So let's say digits, right? And digit. So let me save and compile. Of course, the digit for Euro USD is 5. So you can see it is telling me 5. Even if we are on a chart that have digit of 3, it is still telling me 5 because I only demand for digit for Euro USD, right? So you can come along to go through this so that you will see what is available. Yes, you can get the spread, you can get the stop level, you can get last known server time, you can get the lot size, you can get the tick value, and so on. You can get anything in this option. So you can even get the minimum lot size allowed to be traded for this particular symbol or for this symbol that you specify. For example, let's get the minimum lot size allowed to be traded for a particular symbol. So let's say I specify this, minimum lot. So let me just give it this name, minimum lot. Then here I'll say my chart symbol. So retrieve my chart symbol and use it. So instead of me hard coding the symbol, so I can print out the minimum lot size allowed to be traded on this particular symbol. So let me go back. Then let me launch this. You can see the minimum lot size allowed is 0.01. And let's go back to this US 30. The minimum lot size is actually 1. So let me see. Yes, it's telling me 1. So let's see the minimum lot size allowed for this chart. You can see now I can programmatically get some of my values on this specification, just like I promised, So you can also get the maximum lot size, and so on. And that is that on some of the inbuilt functions that we might be dealing with, or some of the inbuilt functions that you need to know of. So later on, we are going to be using different inbuilt functions. We are going to be introducing different inbuilt functions, and you will understand that it is not necessary you memorize everything. Yes, you should be aware of them, but you do not necessarily need to know everything. All you need to do is be able to do a quick research and be attentive to the tooltip. The tooltip will give you hint of what the function needs as the parameters and what the function is meant to return or is going to be returning. And in case where you still find it hard to understand or maybe it's not working your way, you can quickly make research on what the function you are trying to use is. So And like I said, as we move further in the course, we are going to be using some of the inbuilt functions available on MQL4, and you notice they are so interesting, and they ease our work. So instead of having to write everything, we are going to be having all of this at our disposal. So I will see you on the next lecture.